Hello, everyone. We're going to be getting started with the evening's program in just a few minutes, so kindly take a seat and we'll be starting very shortly.
If you want to grab a seat, we're going to get started. Could we get the background music off? La la la, la 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 la. I'll just sway here to the music until it pauses. Hi everyone, welcome. I'm Rebecca West, publisher of the MRB and executive director of the Association of English Language Publishers of Quebec. Oh wow, we just got really mood lighting in here. It's so nice to see all of you here. Thank you for coming out and celebrating the launch of our summer issue. Instead of our usual land acknowledgement, which I sometimes feel, I don't know, kind of awkward running through, and I feel like many people kind of tune out, I'd like to share a few thoughts from a great talk on advancing diversity and equity that I attended last week, given by Jill Richardson, who's the executive director of the Festival of Literary Diversity, or FOLD as it's known, in Brampton, Ontario. Although, unfortunately, across America, we're seeing DEI initiatives dwindling or being flat out canceled. Jael reminded us that diversity is not a buzzword or a trend, but really encompasses these necessary steps towards global forward-thinking culture. She stated, even at Fold, which is an event created to celebrate literary diversity, no single event or project is ever perfect in terms of its representation. This is also the case at the Montreal Review of Books, where across our print reviews or online reviews and events like this, we strive to feature as diverse a selection of authors and contributors as possible, not only in terms of gender and race, but also maybe less considered markers of identity, such as age, ability, or worldview. In this summer issue, for example, we have several BIPOC and 2S LGBTQ+ authors, but no Mohawk or Anishinaabe authors from the unceded territory of Jojage, the land on which we're gathered today. So as I look out to all of you, I invite you to reflect on how you can bring more diversity into your day-to-day, into your reading habits, who might be missing from your bookshelf or your beach bag this summer. And if you have the good fortune, as I do, to celebrate writers through your work as a publisher or event programmer, look at the voices that may be missing from the conversation. Consider not only the authors you choose to publish and celebrate, but the many freelancers who contribute to the realization of a book or the makeup of audiences who come out to your events. I say this with great humility, knowing that we don't always get it right, but that we're committed to keep learning and to ensure strong representation of diverse voices in our teams, our reviews, and our programming. I'd like to give a big thank you to our dedicated MRB staff for putting this great issue together. Our editor, Malcolm Fraser, designer, David Leblanc, who are both here. I don't know if Emma made it. Anyway, on our way, our interim associate editor, Emma Dollery, associate publisher, Alexandra Swenny. All of our reviewers and illustrators, our live stream collaborators from the Community Digital Arts Hub, as well as our board of directors. And thank you to local artist Carl Philippe Simonis, whose beautiful artwork is featured on the cover. Yes. In other team news, we have filled the associate editor position, finally, yes. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to Priscilla Joly, who joins us this week. Priscilla is a PhD candidate in English Lit at Concordia, co-editor of the post-colonial journal Refractions, works part-time at our new neighbor library, the Sansanak, and speaks 5 languages. Priscilla is taking over from Emma, who has worked with us on the spring and summer issues, following the departure of Nive Demarage last fall. Thank you, Emma, when you arrive, for your enthusiasm and flexibility in taking on this role temporarily, and we wish you all the best in your new writing role. And finally, of course, I would like to express gratitude to our longstanding funders, the Government of Canada's Canada Book Fund, the Canada Council for the Arts, SODEC, and the Conseil des Arts de Montréal, as well as our many advertisers. The MRB would not be possible without your generous support. We have a great lineup for you this evening with readings by 3 writers featured in the issue, Gabrielle, Drolet, Stephanie Roberts, and H. Nigel Thomas. A big thank you to Andreas from Paragraph Bookstore for providing the book sales this evening. If you have not picked up a copy of the books, please do so. The authors will be available after the readings for signings. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic over to our editor, Malcolm Fraser.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out. Yeah, there's a whole row of seats here in the front. I was asking about, what happened to the bar stools at the bar, and then I was told they're all here on stage. Yeah, don't be shy. Come on up. There's plenty of room up front. So we have MRB MVPs here tonight. We have founding editor Kimberly Bourgeois is here. Longtime co-editor Ian McGillis is here. We have past excellent associate editors Nive Damaraj and Athena Khalid. It's very exciting. And of course, our new associate editor Priscilla Joly is here. Emma is being fashionably late. She's missing the sentimental tributes that we were going to give to her. Well, that's what happens when you don't arrive on time. Um, anyway, thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you enjoy the new issue. I'm going to, without further ado, introduce our first reader. Gabrielle Drolet is a journalist, essayist, and cartoonist based in Montreal. She regularly contributes cartoons to the New Yorker and the Globe and Mail, and is the first woman to receive a National Newspaper Award nomination for editorial cartooning. Her written work has been published in the New York Times, the Globe and Mail, the Walrus, Vice, Teen Vogue, and more. Her essays on disability have been nominated for a Digital Publishing Award and won gold at the Canadian Online Publishing Awards. Gabrielle finished her MFA at the University of Guelph in 2023, and she's the author of Look Ma No Hands, a chronic pain memoir available right at our souvenir table before you leave tonight. Welcome, Gabrielle.
I'm so happy to be here. I've come to so many of these as a spectator, so it's cool to be on the other side. I'm reading from an essay called Barbecue Leftovers, and I'm going to start now. I read online about a surgery a friend of John's told me. He was one of those people I saw every now and then by virtue of having friends in common, though we'd never hang out one-on-one. He was a medical student, a fact he never let anyone forget. It always came up, one way or another. He'd had a hard day at work, doing his placement as a medical student. He was emotionally exhausted, from learning how to deal with patients as a medical student. He'd seen someone dressed as a doctor on Halloween, which was funny to him as a real doctor, or rather as a medical student, which is just the larval form of a real doctor. He'd gone to the grocery store where he had been a medical student. Had he mentioned being in med school, by the way? Though this could be annoying, I mostly found it endearing. There's something interesting about watching someone be so proud of what they did, or almost did, that they mentioned it as often as they could, scouring every conversation for the right place to drop in the information. It was almost exciting. Every time we talked, I found myself guessing where it might get wedged in, trying to figure out how a conversation about IKEA or a TV show might transform into one about med school. Every now and then, though, the med school talk crossed the line from endearing to irritating. I would struggle to sit patiently as he explained the impact of chronic pain on mental health to me, a mentally ill person with chronic pain. You can laugh. Every time I opened my mouth to speak, I would be interrupted with clumsy and often incorrect explanations of topics I actually understood quite well. There were also moments where his stories about school got repetitive. He loved recounting events in a way that framed himself as a hero, which was how he felt. Every patient steadily inflated his ego, and he relished in telling us about how he'd managed to cure them. This particular evening, it seemed, he'd finally cast his attention onto me as the new person to fix. I looked over at him. You read online about a surgery? We were sitting on the couch together at John and Maria's house. I was thumbing through a book while he worked on his laptop. John's cat, Greg, purred loudly between us. Yeah, I've been reading... Thanks, guys. I'm gonna become a character actor after this. Yeah, I've been reading a bunch of papers on your nerve thing. I'd never heard about it, so I wanted to become more educated. Right. As a medical student, it feels important to learn about as much as possible. There's so much we miss in school. Sure, I said, that makes sense. I did think it was weird that he'd never actually just asked me about my medical condition before skipping to peer-reviewed literature, though I didn't tell him this. I just wanted to know more. He closed his laptop and turned his whole body towards me, serious now. I was reminded of all those sessions I'd had with doctors and specialists in sterile rooms, their voices stern. I took a deep breath and prepared for what I knew would be an exhausting conversation. Greg, the cat, climbed into my lap, upset that I'd stopped petting him. The surgery, are you familiar with it? People have this habit of Googling my nerve condition and assuming that, in their few minutes of research, they've learned something about it that I've somehow missed. Though I know this is well-intentioned, it does make me wonder if they think I'm stupid. As though, in my years of having nerve pain, I've never once bothered to look it up. As though they might say, I was Googling last night and learned about a surgery. Have you looked into that? And I might answer, no, I'd never thought to turn to Google. The reality was that I'd been familiar with the surgery for about as long as I'd been familiar with my condition. Within hours of learning the words thoracic outlet syndrome, I'd scoured Google to read medical journals and blog posts about different solutions. I won't pretend to be someone with much knowledge about medical procedures or their severity. Luckily for me, the seriousness of TOS surgery is simple to understand by its very nature. It goes like this. They just take out one of your ribs. When I first read about this, I instinctively touched my fingers to the place right under my collarbone, where my first rib was. I learned that, by removing this rib, the surgery gives your nerves more space to breathe. They become less compressed and your pain eases. I wasn't considering surgery as a real option, still convinced that I might miraculously heal and move on as though this had never happened. There was one aspect of the surgery that particularly interested me, though, and so I opened a new tab on Google and clicked the voice-to-text button. Alone in my apartment, I spoke a burning question out loud. Are you allowed to keep surgically removed bones? Sitting on the couch in Montreal a full year later, I let John's friend explain the surgery to me as though I'd never heard of it. He talked to me about its success rate, not great, the recovery time, pretty long, and why I might consider it. I wasn't going to. I nodded along, barely listening, waiting for him to finish talking. When he finally did, I imagined he expected me to thank him for all this research he'd done. To say, wow, I didn't know any of that. You're a very clever boy. Instead, I leaned back and asked the same question I'd asked whenever the surgery was brought up. And if I got the surgery, do you think they'd let me keep the rib? What? Could I keep the rib? Oh, he frowned. I don't know. Medical school's got some blind spots, I thought. This, to me, seemed like pretty crucial information. Guess, then, what are the odds I could keep it? At this point, I'd done enough Googling to know the answer was maybe, but probably not. Besides, the rib wouldn't come out cleanly like how I'd first imagined it. They usually had to cut it up to extract it, so it was little chunks of bone. Still, I pictured being handed a clean, full rib, like something left on your plate after a big meal at a barbecue restaurant. I don't know, John's friend repeated. Why would you want to keep it? I think it would be funny. This was the honest answer. I liked the idea of someone coming over and walking up to my bookshelf, which was full of knickknacks. They'd pick up the rib and turn to me, holding the curved piece of bone in their hand. What's this? They'd ask, to which I would answer, oh, that, it's my rib. There was so much potential for humor here. I imagined all the Adam and Eve jokes I could make. I thought about displaying the rib in a glass case, the way dinosaur bones and fossils are displayed at the museum. Were the rib to be chopped up, I imagined using pieces of it in jewelry. When people asked what my beautiful earrings were made from, I could answer, oh, they are my rib. Thank you.
Thank you Thank you, Gabrielle. Could I get this mic? Maybe I think. Thank you. It might make sense to have different height-specific mic stands. Thank you, Gabrielle. It's great. Our next reader is Stephanie Roberts. She's the author of Rushes from the River Disappointment, a Quebec Writers Federation finalist for the A.M. Klein Prize for Poetry, the winner of the 64 Best Poets of 2018, a recipient of the Sage Hill Writing Award for Black Excellence, and a Canada Council of the Arts grantee. Her work has been critically praised and featured in well over 100 periodicals and anthologies, in print and online throughout Canada, the US, and Europe. She is a citizen of Canada, Panama, and the US, and has lived most of her life in Quebec. And she's the author of UNMET, out from Biblioasis and available right here. Welcome, Stephanie.
Seems good. Perfect. Hello, everybody. This collection of poetry, Unmet, is about desire, and specifically unmet desire as expressed in unmet justice, rescue, and love. And while desire is the face of this book, what I hope is foundational is it's about vulnerability, the vulnerability of the poet and the vulnerability of the reader. This first poem, I'm going to read 6. This first poem is called Lady Fine is for Sugar, and it was first published in Poetry Magazine. Lady Fine is for sugar. My grandmother believed in it. Delicate laugh, perfectly pressed blouse, not shirt, and proper grammar billowing it out. You are well, not fine. Fine is for sugar. Shorthand, typing, secretarial position, with some florid-faced boss drew success. My mother stormed like rain, teen pregnancy, loud laugh, bellicose, swore freely in front of her children. I am the sky that could fall either way. Lady passé and enduring mythology, I feel some sort of way over Cardi B, precisely because she levitated up a stripper pole like a fucking phoenix against the stench of respectability politics. Like a motherfucking phoenix through the ceiling, burning on the hydrogen of unwavering respect bricks of dollar signs gain. Plush in the same country where Abuela believed you had to play the lady game. Star-spangled fantasy. My mother knew the danger, the voice that can't be heard, the suspect testimony of that pressed blouse. Flesh tone foundation obscures black and blues. White Peter Pan collar, crossed ankles, the I'm well, thank you. The process. This poem is about my process. You have written a lot of idiotic things under the question of it, what it is, and with how many horns, what parts, lips, and legs. Flippant one day, evasive the next. You are a fool of gently shrugging shoulders, trying to tie cat's tails together into certainty. In an empty apartment, you butter a sandwich on both sides with daydreams. A memento dropped in cola is desire. You reassemble aftermath before the whole unravels. Acid, astringent, sweet, bitter slurry. Inviolate chemistry disregarded at your loss. Now we're baking cake. Your childhood was stored in Abuela's basement. An inflatable clown you punch but can't knock over. Not the way first love lands one squarely. Afflicted by the bud-green thrusts of March, it's important to weed out hurry. Slow your heartbeat by athlete. Pour 2 digits of bourbon into Grandpappy's highball glass. With no timekeeper at the finish, with no great baker in the sky, the waft of vanilla to the next floor tells you that you hardly need to touch it, but softly you touch it, testing for springback. Stick a knife in the center. It must come out clean to prevent collapse. The dog in charge of boy. Epigraph. The man in charge of rice starves to death while leaning on the sacks of rice. Pavlovsk Station, Aaron Noteboom. You could die on the unshared sack of yourself, but not today, my love. A dog finished in fire, curled by the sooty face of a boy. Close fur, wet nose, tiny grants of mercy. The man in charge of rice refines profession, paid occupation, declaration of belief. One day I stood shadowed by a liminal smirk, his raised eyebrows innocent as a red hand. One day I part a plate in half against the guillotine of table's edge. Dog expires near missed boy, a mother's hunger, and the scientist against a saved nation. I lean on my diamond mind, refusing an end on vacant promises. The dog in charge of boy wasn't bound by law, didn't know what we call love, bound by neither profession nor profession. This next poem is an ekphrastic that is based on the, oh my gosh, Kandinsky, a very famous Kandinsky painting, Einige Kreise. If you know his work, there's a very famous painting that's a series of circles, almost like celestial against a velvety black background. Einige Kreise, several circles, January to February 1926. I imagine it had to be cold. The exhibit audio said there was a voice. He got lost in it. A switchboard operator had to move her from dream to memory, have dinner together the same night. Several circles may well be a time of year grounded on nocturnal skyscape, colors scumbled, opaque and transparent, comments all of life and breath in the imagination's Ouroboros. I'm gaining on Kandinsky's completed circle, yet the robin's song returns. How do found and lost have equal weights of permanence? A thoughtfully arranged bouquet opens with more and more power before it glows over. And even if we didn't photograph every sneeze, the breeze of blooms echoes, mother to son. The baby who would not nap falls asleep at the wheel on his way home. It was cold in Munich, had to be. Love waits at the end of line. Mine seizes line, draws it end to end, kisses it to canvas. This is the penultimate poem. Do we know what penultimate means? Blush. White folks think we can't. He bought it on himself, said because Citizen knew his rights and tried to insist on the content of his character, which will be cobbled together from shadowed slants of his past during her trial after they dig her slugs from what remains of his black matter. He stated the facts of being stopped without cause, and I felt at that moment the weight claws its way up my cheeks. With hands at 2 and 10, the citizen asked that a supervisor be present. On Saturday, even God put down his Glock to thank himself, but every day is the creation of man for the skin folk. Together, officers murmur a type of black mass, while his dashboard cam records. I am a licensed gun owner. I have a licensed gun in the trunk, and I do not feel safe. I don't feel safe, sung baritone, alto, soprano. A tenor such that my fair cheeks flare, hotter than white man's sins. When the guttural bass of the officer's "get out of the car" drops, the minute citizen's alphabet goes STUVWXY, she pulls her service revolver and marries it to his temple. And I'm humiliated to see myself see this, as you also have seen. We see this one and innumerable ones. I imagine in a more kind time a body cam museum, like our memory of peace and justice. These folks think we can't blush, have less lung capacity, that an oximeter works the same on our fingers, that an algorithm can't discriminate. But they're wrong. We blush. We blush at all of it. It starts in the kettle of our bellies and it burns like ethanol flames up the tide of Black history. I want to throw up when Whitey says about the phrenology of his magnetic head. He brought it on himself. Deadly embarrassments. You think you know your rights when you don't know your place. Unmet again. Wherever you're going, I'm going with you. Say I'm afraid. Say I'm a yam. I don't want to go nowhere through nothing with nobody. Say desire wriggles in your bowels, mute tapeworm, munching chalk, clay, charcoal. Tell fear your dreams never slept, not by my hands. It is you who beat your fist-sized muscle half to death, pulled it over grates and grates of regret. Place newborn faith on a belly of shared solitude, warm in the shore-coming sunset. Save all your yeses for me. Roost yourself in this nest. Put blood over the door of the past. Inside, the future has eyes only for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. We have one more reader. H. Nigel Thomas is the author of 13 books comprising fiction, poetry, and literary criticism, and is the recipient of many awards, including the 2022 Canada Council for the Arts Molson Prize. He is a Vincentian Canadian who lives in the Montreal suburb of Greenfield Park, and his latest book is A Different Hurricane, out from Dundurn Press, available here. Welcome, Nigel.
Okay. I just want to take a minute to say thanks to the great people at the MRB, the reviewers, everybody, Elan, Casa del Popolo, everybody who has worked, done their little bit to put this event together. Of course, I'll be reading from a different hurricane. I just hope my glasses will do the job. Yeah, a little bit would help. Okay, this is better. Yeah, I am. There are two narrators here. One's the husband, and the other is the wife. And her narrative is in the form of a journal. I'm going to be reading from her journal. And this entry is on the 8th of April, 2012. She's been reflecting on why she didn't make an entry on February 22nd, and now she's jumping forward. This is my first trip here since. Most mornings, I haven't felt like getting out of bed. Gordon sometimes succeeded in coaxing me out. When I do, I don't go onto the porch. I don't want the neighbors to see me or talk to me. Thin or meal. Christine ran into Beth at the supermarket and tried to wheedle information out of her. A week ago, Flossie showed up with a bowl of soup and asked Gordon for me. I heard him say, "She can't come to the door right now. She's sick or something?" "No, she isn't sick. Just doing something that she can't leave off at the moment." Since a visit in February, Beth has invited us twice for supper. I said no, but urged Gordon to go alone. Of course, he didn't. Beth has visited twice in the interim. I can't remember which days. Came the first time despite my telling her I wasn't having visitors, and she scourged rather than comfort me. "It's because you retired cold. Yeah, I know you have liver trouble and it leaves you feeling weak, but you retired with no plans for what you'll do afterward." "Oh, I've started work on a journal." "Oh, you never told me." "I wanted it kept a secret. I thought I'd wait until it's finished, and I won't let anyone read it if it's not to my liking." "Why don't you ask Alan to prescribe something for you? From a mile away, I can see you're depressed." "I'll think about it. I feel so miserable. I feel so miserable. I don't want to get better. I want to die." "Well, I don't think Alan can help you with that. Day after tomorrow, I'm going to come and pick you up and take you to Indian Bay. You'll come with me, even if I have to handcuff you, hand and foot, stuff a washcloth down your throat, and toss you into the car. Just the two of us. So we'll talk woman stuff." Woman stuff. I became alarmed. Did she know? I went. What day was it? Had to have been a Saturday or a Sunday. Saturday. There was a lot of traffic. I relaxed after it became clear that the trip wasn't about Gordon and my illness. I'll admit, I felt better afterward. Indian Bay's warm water, the jollity of the children and young people around me, mostly people visiting from abroad, people who had put their cares on hold and came to enjoy themselves. They distracted me from mine. It helped that I met no one I knew. Since then, I've been on a roller coaster. Beth calls me every day, sometimes twice. And Gordon knows better than to tell her Maureen can't come to the phone. One day, 3 weeks or a month ago, I'm losing track of time. I made the mistake of telling her that if I had the energy, I would get out of bed and hurl myself over this cliff. She was here within 30 minutes. Brought frozen callaloo soup too, that she thawed in the microwave and ordered me to drink to the very last drop. Not sure what she told Alan when she got back home, but the next day he came too. I heard him and Gordon whispering on the porch. He came into the bedroom and after asking me how I was, held a bottle of pills close enough for me to read the name Zoloft. I shook my head. I won't take them. You have to take this, Maureen. No, it's not an option. I did not answer. I wanted to say, Alan dear, pills don't nourish the psyche. Good news does. It makes us euphoric. For almost 40 years, I watched the glow in my students' eyes when they received good results, especially when they thought they'd failed. And there was my own joy that came from seeing them happy. Pills, my dear Alan, pills cannot provide that. The soul needs another kind of food. Maureen, are you with me? Yes, just thinking that you don't have what will make me well. And what will? Good news, Alan, good news. He sighed, looked away and seemed annoyed. Facing the window, he said, you'll take the Zoloft, or I'll have you admitted for psychiatric observation. Talking to me or to the window? He turned to look at me. You're just trying to scare me into taking pills. No, you're being foolhardy and punishing yourself uselessly. I can't let you go on doing this. What were you and Gordon whispering about? About your care. Does he think that antidepressants can undo what he has done? He swallowed his saliva. Are you going to take these, or do I have to have you admitted for observation? You told Beth that you would like to hurl yourself over this cliff. Maybe, Alan, if you had AIDS, you would too. That shut him up for a while. When he spoke next, his tone was coaxing. Be reasonable, Maureen. Don't you want to feel good? Don't you want your energy back? We are worried. Okay, I'll try them. Holding a glass of water, Gordon came into the room immediately. He must have been outside the door listening. Alan unscrewed the cap and tapped the pill into it. I sat up. He tossed the pill into my mouth. I took the glass from Gordon and drank. You might not feel the effect for a while, but I'm sure you'll feel better in about a week. He was right. Except that Zoloft exacerbated the mild diarrhea I got from a tripler. After 10 days, he put me on Prozac. It's definitely helping. After all, here I am again, writing. My remaining stomach problems are from the ARVs. My appetite has returned somewhat, but I'm still to regain any of the 20 pounds I've lost. Alan is confident that most of my weight will return. I hope it does. My eyes are in deep holes. My face is like a rutted landscape. My neck's wattled. Today I'm accompanying Gordon to May's place for Sunday dinner. It's a week now that I haven't thought of dying. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. And I didn't catch you in time, but I'd like to invite our authors back up onto the stage so we can have a little discussion. microphone. Have a seat. All right, are we live? Yes, we are. Okay, thanks. Thank you all so much for your beautiful readings. I guess since we just had the reading from you, Nigel, I'll start with you. One of I loved the I really liked the book, and I loved the piece by John Wickham in our new issue. Something that I found out that really fascinated me and the rest of the team was that the reading you did was from the diary of the character Maureen, and the piece in the piece you mentioned that you wrote a very lengthy diary of the character that you then drew from. That's deep commitment. Is that do you go to that level with all of your characters in your novels, or is this a special circumstance?
I'd probably say that Wilson Harris, who was from Guyana, a very prolific, he would probably disagree, author, novelist. He said that his first drafts were usually about 1,000 pages, and he liked reducing them to about 150. Yeah, I do write a lot more than actually does appear in the text. A lot more. Yeah. You know, I'm from the country, and we had to rely on our skills to survive. And while you folks who live here can buy canola, we had to make it directly from the coconut. And you would grate maybe like 2 buckets of stuff, and you end up getting maybe about 20 ounces of coconut oil. And my writing process is somewhat.
Wow, I'm impressed. Stephanie, I loved your reading too, and I also enjoyed reading the book. And there was a line that stood out to me in one of the poems where you said, I hope I'm quoting it correctly, financial literacy stands 5 feet nothing. I was curious if you could tell us a bit more about what, just to unpack that a bit for us.
Okay, so in that poem, and that's relating to basketball because it stands 5 feet nothing, but gets 3 points under the hoop, right? Because like there's get rich schemes out there, right? And to me, in some way, financial literacy is part of that. Like the idea that, well, if you have financial literacy, then you'll do well and you make a lot of money, and it ignores the privileged position of having financial literacy.
Sure. Okay. So, Gabrielle, I was really curious when I heard about your memoir because we had worked before. You had done an illustration from one of our earlier issues, and we were all when we got wind that you had moved to Montreal, we instantly were like wanted to work with you because we were like, oh, she's had stuff published in the New Yorker. Like, do you think she would deign to work with the MRB?
And I was so honored.
So I was curious when I saw that your memoir came out because I thought of you more as an illustrator or a cartoonist. But then as I read the book, you were doing writing professionally before you started working as an illustrator. So I guess what I'm getting around to is just I wondered how, like, tell us a little bit about how the memoir came together. Because in your book you talk about the difficulty of a writing career, which of course I and many of us are very familiar with. But it kind of has a happy ending with you publishing this memoir. So I wondered if you could tell us a little bit about how it came about.
Yeah, it is such an interesting thing because I've been writing for much longer than I've been drawing. My background is in like written journalism. And then even when I was writing this, people were like, "Oh, it's a word book." Like people really thought it would be a graphic novel. Um, but yeah, I think part of that is that with illustration, because you're posting everything you do online and people are seeing that, as soon as I started cartooning, despite the fact that I was a writer for much longer, people were like, "Oh, this is a cartoonist. This is an illustrator." Um, but the book came about because I was in my MFA wanting to write a novel, and then I lost the ability to type or write with my hands, which I don't recommend if any of you are writers. It's actually pretty major to use your hands. And so very suddenly I had to start using voice to text. And it was this weird thing where, I'm lucky that the technology exists, but the way you speak isn't the same as the way you write or type. So my voice changed. And I had already written so much of this novel, and I just fucking hated it because I was trying to write it with this new voice, and it wasn't what I imagined. So I took all this time off, and when I went back to school, my thesis advisor kind of sat me down because I kept trying to write this novel, and he was like, "You've been a professional essayist for a long time, and now it kind of feels like you have something interesting to write about. What if that was the book instead?" So it really wasn't the book I had planned to write, but it is interesting because I think a lot of people think I wrote a book because a bad thing happened to me, but I would have written a book either way. It just would have been a very different book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure you have more to come as well.
Well, yes.
Well, I'd like to open up the floor to any questions that our audience might have. Don't be shy. Of course, keep them one at a time. Keep them brief. But please, we'd love to have some questions. No, nobody yet. Okay, here, someone.
For the poet, how do you shape the poem, or how does the poem's shape kind of come into being? Is it sculptural the way you work, or cutting away things to create a shape, or is it the words themselves that suggest a shape? Not a question.
So the question is, how do the poems take shape? Is it sculptural or otherwise? Can you describe how they take shape?
This has got to be my least favorite question on all the earth. I don't know how to answer that question. It depends. I can have an idea for something and a little bit like Nigel, do a lot of writing for it and then whittle it away. But that's only one kind of poem. And then there'll be another instance of I get a weird idea. I have a poem in my first collection, Rushes from the River Disappointment, that was inspired by watching this Vegas entertainer swallow and regurgitate objects, while manipulating them in his stomach. Like he throws down a nut and then a screw and then regurgitate them together. So I wrote a whole poem like almost perfectly just from thinking about how weird that was. So I collect ideas, but I really do not have a set formula from poem to poem. Like to me, they happen by magic, and I feel I really think of my poets more of like children than like a house. Like a house, you have a plan and you build it and you end up with a house at the end. But a child, you make them and they have their own life. And that's my experience as a poet.
I think this can apply to all three of you, but I was wondering how you tackle or use humor in tackling darker themes. Should have noticed that.
Yeah. So how do you use humor in tackling darker themes? A question for everyone.
I'll go first. Yeah,
I mean, that was a big one for me, which is why the book is called Look Ma, No Hands. Like, I wanted it to be, I wanted humor to be a really big part of it from the offset. I think, I'm curious to hear, especially with you having done fiction, I think it's a different thing. Like, with nonfiction, for me, I was like, this is my life, so I'm allowed to laugh at it. But it is really interesting where I think it's hard to strike a balance. Like, sometimes, there are moments in the book that necessitate a lot more earnestness, and a lot of what I went through, like, wasn't funny, or at least wasn't funny at the time. So it was just a lot of, like, in looking back, finding those moments of humor. And I think for the specific story I was telling, and something that, like, was reflective of my personality, having that humor was really important. And also, I think often, or like usually, stories about disability are kind of just sad. Like, they, truly, like, don't have a ton of nuance, at least the popular stories we tell about disability. So I think for me, humor was a way of making it a more balanced and nuanced look at the fact that, like, even if you're disabled, there are moments when life is funny.
Oh, I don't know. Did you find humor in this? I didn't see it. It's an interesting question, and something that actually I've interrogated myself about, because Mark Twain happens to be one of my favorite authors, and I can in no way write like him. But I've noticed, for example, that the older I get, the less humor there is in my work. And I don't know why. But if you found humor in this, great. But I didn't think there was. There might be about 3 or 4 tiny instances where the absurdity of the situation does evoke some kind of dissonance that probably might get a chuckle. Usually between the male, well, actually the protagonist, Gordon, and his daughter, Frida. Their interactions occasionally will give some, but not so much so with him and Marie. So, yeah.
So my collection deals with some pretty serious topics: intimate partner violence, police brutality, racial injustice, and there's some laughs in there. And I don't know that I like, oh, I'm gonna put this funny line in, because a lot of that time I take those lines out. I have a little conversation with myself and say, this is no time for a joke.
That's right.
You're making yourself laugh, but take that out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So people tell me I'm funny. And I think, and even the poems that make me laugh, I don't read them live, because I'm like, you cannot read that without laughing there. So, so I think the humor that's in there, and I like to give a reading where people laugh. I feel like poetry should make you experience everything, infuriate you, wound you, uplift you, and make you laugh. So I hope, I always want there to be humor in my work, and you will definitely find moments where I've deliberately put it in there at the appropriate moment, but there's not enough people here to get a book, so you may want to run there and grab one before they're all gone.
I think we got time for one more question, if anyone has.
I don't know if you have any experiences and anecdotes with AI, or if you have any fears related to AI.
Do you have experience with AI or fears related to AI? Very topical.
Well, I'm just annoyed when Copilot decides that it wants to write for me. I don't know, maybe it's because of how old I am. I kind of feel that I have maybe at the most one decade left on this planet, and I leave those problems for you younger people. Yeah. That's my answer.
And that was funny. Um, um, wow, yeah, talking about yeah, I don't know. I think it's really grim. Uh, it my hope is that people, the kind of people who read our work, right, the kind of people who are interested in literature, are also interested in the humanity of it, right? Like I have a hard time imagining anyone in this room or anyone who's in my community of readers and writers being interested in something written by a machine. And so all I can hope, because especially also as an illustrator, like that's an industry where we're already seeing a lot of AI taking over. But with that too, right? You just have to hope, I think, that the kind of audience you're reaching, the kind of audience that would be interested in your work to begin with, is not the kind of audience interested in like AI garbage. That's it. Which is not a funny thing to say, but it's true. Like it's just, I don't know that it's going away. I hope that people will continue to read work by people.
When it comes to creative writing and poetry, I just don't believe that AI can do what we do. I don't experience it as any threat to me as a poet. I was like, that prediction machine cannot come up with what this brain thinks of. So I don't worry about it. And I feel like if people want to buy a book of AI created poetry, they're just not my audience, right? And I mean, there's all kinds of poetry that's out there which is not to my taste and I would never read or buy, and other people dig it, and that's just not my audience. I don't think of that work as peer to what I do. Because I work with some writers professionally doing some editing, I have come across it. And the first time I was reading this document and I was so confused. I was like, what is going on? Why is this person repeating this over and over again? And then when it was revealed to me that this person had run it through whatever, some sort of, yeah, something like that, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Dude, you can't you can't send this out, like it's terrible. So that's my experience.
Well, here's hoping, writing by people will continue to thrive. Well, Stephanie, Nigel, Gabrielle, thank you so much for your wonderful readings. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you all so much for being here. And do I see Emma at the back there? I wanted to give a shout out to our outgoing interim associate editor, Emma Dowry. Yeah, thank you, Emma, for all the work you've done for us over the last year. So stick around, grab a book, chat with us. Thanks so much for coming out.
Till I see